vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Comunicare la fede agli altri, veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene.
Vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Comunicare la fede agli altri, veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'iter communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'iter communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'iter communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene.
Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo, che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto e il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza del cuore ferito, del presente. E tutto questo esiste anche grazie a te.
Buongiorno, benvenuti a questo incontro sul
Good morning and welcome to this meeting on the legacy of the Algerian martyrs. I would like to greet our participants, and then we're going to have a big applause for everybody. His Eminence Cardinal Jean-Paul Vesco, her sister Lourdes Migueles Mattia, Father Thomas Georgeon, and Professor Nadia Kebou. Welcome to you all. We are aware of the fact that you've flown or driven long ways to come here to Rimini, so thank you very much for this as well. We're very grateful to you all for your for the possibility that you've given us to, in a way, know a little bit more about the martyrs of Algeria, so that we can discover the stories of the dramatic events that happened between 1994 and 1996. That are very well illustrated in the exhibition with under the title called Twice. We need to learn a bit more about the awareness that a life given can be a fruitful life for the brothers and sisters, be they far or near. Because a life given can become a new brick in the building of a more human and brotherly world. The Holy Father, Pope Leo XIV, said this on the occasion of his message to the meeting of this year. In the Martyrs of Algeria, you find the vocation of the Church to inhabit the desert in deep communion with the entire mankind in order to overcome the walls of diffidence that divide religions and cultures, so as to, in a way, be in the context of the incarnation of the Son of God. This is the true path of our mission. It is not rather a exhibition of our identities, but rather the donation of ourselves up until the martyrdom of those who worship night and day in joy and tribulations. So Jesus alone. Our meeting is a meeting of friendship between the peoples, for friendship between the cultures, the religions. The martyrs of Algeria testify to the fact that there exists such a true friendship, and as a matter of fact, they incarnate this friendship, and they even give their lives for their friends, who follow a different God, who believe in a different God. And they remind us of the fact that interreligious dialogue is first and foremost a dialogue between people who let themselves be enriched and transformed thanks to the encounter with the other. I would like to seize this opportunity to thank the curators and those who conceived this interesting exhibition, especially the Oasis body with Mr. Banzi and the Libreria Editrice Vaticana, whose editorial director is Lorenzo Fazzini, whom I am very happy to leave the floor. Thank you very much, President Scholz. Thanks for your kind words and for this introduction. I would like to spend a couple of additional words to introduce to you our dear guests. We have a perfect gender equality here, as you can see. I would like to thank our dear guests for this very interesting encounter. It was long expected. His Eminence will forgive me to, in a way, kind of break the protocol by greeting first and foremost Madame Lourdes Migueles Matias, an Augustinian missionary sister. Sister Lourdes is here with us, and she will tell us what it has meant to be in Algeria in those years. She escaped an attack where two of her sisters, Sister Esther and Sister Caridad, unfortunately died. Jean-Paul Visco was the Bishop of Orano, where we had Pierre Claverie as a bishop, so he's the successor of a martyr. And he's the Archbishop and Cardinal of Algiers. Welcome. Nadia Kebour, she's from Algeria. She's professor at the PISAI, the Pontifical Institute for Arabic and Islamic Studies. She's a Muslim scholar with a doctorate on St. Augustine. And here, sitting next to me, we have Thomas Georgeon. You probably already know him. He participated in the 2019 edition of the Rimini meeting. He's at the abbot of La Trappe Monastery and the postulator of the beatification cause of the 19 martyrs of Algeria. Welcome. Allow me to thank the civil and diplomatic authorities present here in the room. And I'd like to thank also the scientific committee of the exhibition, especially Cardinal Angelo Scola, the founder of Oasis, who really wanted this exhibition to be set up. And so that's why we are very happy to greet him and thank him for this. So Lives Given is the title of this encounter. Whose lives are we talking about? We're talking about the lives of the many missionaries who are all over in the world, not only in Algeria, and they basically choose for the maddest thing in the world, as Javier Vergas wrote in a book. The maddest thing in a book is to go in a very far away place, far away from our own culture and land, to be the, so to say, witness of one thing, that life is eternal. There was somebody who, a couple of years ago, basically discovered death, who defeated, death forever. That's why the 19th martyrs of Algeria were willing to literally give their lives because they didn't want to abandon their friends. The old people, the elderly people with whom they were drinking tea, or the disabled children they were taking care of in the centers, or the young people whom they were teaching Arabic, or the women whom they learned how to sew, to become tailors. So the martyr missionaries were not, so to say, supporting only the Catholics, but they were friends of everybody. And in Algeria, as well as in many other places, they literally gave their lives for their friends. Following that guy who once said that there is no bigger love in the world other than giving our own lives for our friends. And our meeting carries the word friendship in its title, and therefore we're going to listen to a very beautiful, to a wonderful story of friendship. So I'd like to start from Sister Lourdes, who's the one who probably is the one who can best exemplify this story of friendship. She lived several years in Algeria, exactly in the period in which our 19 martyrs testified to their faith in Christ by staying close to the Algerian people. So we're really looking forward to listening to your contribution.
Comincio. El 27 de
On the 27th of September 1972, I was sent to Algeria, where our congregation of Augustinian missionaries has been present since 1933. I arrived in Algiers at the age of 22, knowing almost nothing about the country, neither the languages nor the culture, and almost without knowing where I was. It was a great shock. I had no idea what I could do there. The welcome I received from the sisters of the community and their way of life touched my heart. What dedication and generosity in their humble services. I watched them in silence, and I felt edified. My closeness to Cardinal Duval, a man of faith, just and dedicated to building peace and fraternity, was a great help to me in discovering my place and my mission in that country. I still remember his words. We are here to live with the people, with this people, in an atmosphere of fraternal respect, knowing that they, like us, are saved in Christ, even if they ignore them, even if they ignore Him. God's love extends to all humanity. Since my arrival in Algiers, I have had to strip myself of many things, to open my heart and my spirit to new realities which were very different from those I knew. The local church seduced me with its commitment to the Algerian people and its shining witness of unity, communion, and dedication. And this helped me integrate. Little by little, I started discovering the meaning of my vocation and my mission in the church in this country and among our Muslim brothers and sisters. I started studying nursing at a state center in the Hussein district. I was the only foreigner and Christian among all the students. I shed many tears but with great tenacity, perseverance, and the help of the guardian angels God places in our path, I managed to successfully finish my studies. For almost 30 years, I worked as a nurse in state hospitals. And I was always the only Christian and religious person working there. The great sacrifices I made at the beginning in this country allowed me to fully integrate into the community. I discovered its values, its culture, its beliefs. I realized that my mission was to live and share my faith and my daily life with responsibility and authenticity. These were many years lived with the Algerian people. I witnessed many changes in society and also in the church, which was increasingly smaller and deprived of many of its material goods. During this time, more than 700 churches or chapels were turned into mosques. In 1976, the Algerian state nationalized the church's facilities and recovered more than 100 schools and training centers, as well as dozens of kindergartens, hospitals, and dispensaries. Faced with this situation, many nuns and many priests left the country, remaining without work. Those who remained had to be courageous, ingenious, and creative to find new ways to stay in the country and maintain a Christian presence among the population. So, libraries and school support centers were opened to help children and young people in their studies. My life had taken root in that village. I had begun to know and love the people, and I felt their affection and their trust because they treated me as one of their own. And then I discovered the importance of establishing good relationships based on respect and acceptance of differences, and of living, sharing our faith. As a matter of fact, when we work, we talk about God more with our friends and colleagues, more with Muslims than when we are among Christians. So I learned that I had not gone there to impose anything, but rather I was there to share, to work together, and to value this. Little by little, my being and my heart opened up, and human relationships deepened. And they deepened to the point that I established solid, faithful, and lasting friendships that I still maintain today. Thanks to these friendships, my loyalty to Christ and my desire to follow Christ even closer also grew. My loyalty to the church and the Algerian people also increased. And I was willing to give my life if necessary. After growing up for several years in this environment, an environment characterized by solidarity, trust, and friendship, the dark times of fear, insecurity, distrust, and despair came. Thus came the black decade of the 1990s in Algeria. We sisters lived in Bab el Oued, a working-class neighborhood with a strong presence of fundamentalists. The population was very divided and very frightened, and I had no plan for the future. I worked in the new hospital in Benaknoun, a neighborhood far from where we lived. Thank God, I was never afraid. And I continued with the same enthusiasm, if not even greater. I continued sharing the lives of our colleagues as well as the lives of hospital patients. I wanted them to feel that I was not abandoning them, that I wanted to accompany, support, and encourage them. It was a way to sharing their insecurities, as well as a way of sharing their despairs and their fears. I was at their side when the night was very dark, and when the future was very uncertain and everything was hesitating or started trembling. We shared much horror and suffering. After receiving several threats and witnessing so many murders, the leaders of the church and our congregations asked us to be careful, and they asked us to go out only when it was really necessary. I was very afraid that something would happen to us. In 1993, there were 222 nuns in the Diocese of Algiers. 3 years later, there were only 70 sisters left, so there were only 70 of us. Our church was emptying. and remained without a Christian presence. Never before had the future of the church in Algeria been so threatened. At that time, we left home to the bare minimum, only to go to work at the hospital. Before going out, we would leave our personal documents on the bed. We would tell our sisters, we would show our sisters where to find them in case we did not return. It was a time of profound spiritual experience and transformation, both on a personal and community level. It was a time of grace and blessing. We grew in fidelity to Christ. We spent much time in adoration, contemplating Christ crucified. And from there emerged the call and the strength to shed his cross. I experienced as never before in my life that inner strength. So this strong inner strength and the great gift, and this is exactly the communion of saints. We were not alone. We were part of the body of Christ. Each day's gospel reading illuminated my path. My prayer was one of abandonment and trust. Our Eucharists came to life. Each prayer took on more meaning and became more demanding. We had to love and forgive in word and deed. As an Augustinian religious person, I make reference to some words of St. Augustine, which helped me make the decision to remain faithful to Christ and to the Algerian people. They're taken from letter 228, and I quote, "He who remains faithful in the midst of his people, exposed to persecution or even to death, has done a greater work than martyrdom. Therefore, never abandon your flock or your people." Monsignor Pierre Claveri, the Bishop of Orano, who also was murdered, said, and I quote, "It is more important for us today to give our lives to save the future of our people than to withdraw to save ourselves." The situation worsened. On the 1st of December 1993, the Jia, the Islamist armed group, declared that they would kill all foreigners remaining in the country, including members of the church. However, we felt part of the people, and we thought it would not affect us. And so on the 8th of May 1994, our brothers, Henri Verger and Paul Hélène, were murdered in the Kasbah. The funeral in Notre Dame d'Afrique was like a Pentecost. Songs of joy, an explosion of peace, serenity, and strength. We felt an even more intense desire to continue without fear and to live our fidelity with strength and passion, to the point of giving our lives for love. At the same time, this serious event made us realize that our lives were in danger. Since the fundamentalists had no consideration for religious people. So the bishops invited us to leave the country and to extend as much as possible our holidays. So we left, we rested. We shared our situation with our families and with the sisters of the congregation. After coming back from my holidays, I continued working at the hospital. Every day, as I waited for transportation, after greeting the sisters, telling them, may God protect and keep us. And we hope we see each other in the afternoon. I knew that a bullet could hit me from anywhere. I was aware that I might not come home that day. So the days were a continuous prayer of abandonment, and I felt the loving presence of God in myself. At work, all our colleagues would protect me, would protect us. After the holidays, the Archbishop, Mr. Tessier, together with the Mother General and the Mother Provincial, decided to gather all the sisters of Algiers in the diocesan house to discern together and to discover God's will. So on the 6th and 7th of October 1994, we had 2 intense days of personal and community prayer. We reflected on the reasons for continuing our mission or leaving it for a while. Intense moments of listening to the Spirit. and the desire to follow Jesus and his total donation for love of us. All of us were aware of the danger, as well as of the risks and the threats. All of us expressed with great peace and serenity the reasons why we wanted to remain in Algeria. At that moment, I said the following: I want to remain faithful to Christ. I have discovered the value of my vocation, and the Algerians have helped me to live it with greater commitment and fullness. You called me Lord, and I answered, here I am. I want to follow you in these moments of trial. I want to be your witness. I want to follow you. I'm willing to follow you, Lord. I'm a missionary, and I feel realized, I feel fulfilled, and I want to be faithful to the Algerian people who has always welcomed me. And I would like to share my life and my work with them. This people has, in a way, forged me. In the Algerian people, I have experienced strong changes and significant transformations in my life. I have grown next to the Algerian people in faith, in availability and gratuitousness. I am a missionary and an Augustinian in the land of our father, Saint Augustine. And I want to be faithful to you now and always. I want to live as Christ asks me. Love my enemies and do good to those who curse us. 15 days later, on the 23rd of October 1994, after working all day at the hospital, I came home late. We ate something, we laughed, we joked. And then we headed to the chapel that was 2 blocks away. And before we parted, I said aloud, let's go in pairs. If they kill 2, at least they won't kill all 4. It was the day on which the church prays, especially for missionaries. On our way to the Eucharistic celebration, the first 2, Caridad and Esther, were standing at the door of the house where the chapel was located, waiting for them to open. And it was in that moment that 2 bullets went through their heads. Saying my sisters almost lifeless, I could only say from the bottom of my heart, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. It was painful, yes, but we were prepared. I believe that God accepted my sisters' lives and preserved mine so that I could be a witness. I remained alone in the community. I wanted to continue dedicating my life to the church and to the people. However, I had to show great obedience to my superiors and leave the country. I left for Madrid with my heart in pieces, and I felt as I had betrayed the Lord and my deepest convictions. I cried a lot. I never thought it would cost me so much to leave my adopting country. After a few years, and after having made very enriching personal experiences with drug addicts and with university students, I was then asked to return to Algiers. Upon my return, I immediately looked for a way to resume our presence there. And to, in a way, reintegrate into the neighborhood and the house where we had lived. With a new contractor, I started working as a nurse at the Mailot and at the Milo Hospital in our neighborhood of Bab el-Web. The head of the pediatric service, who was a Muslim, told me the following: I accept you not so much for your competences, but rather because you are a foreigner, you are Christian, and you are a religious person. You will be a sign of contradiction. You will suffer, and you will go through difficult times. But with patience, you will be accepted by your colleagues. It had been many years since there had been any Christian or foreign presence in the neighborhood. The new generation did not know what a Christian or a religious person was, let alone what a religious nun, so what a sister, religious sister was. So returning to the house where the murdered nuns had lived was a great challenge. So with our presence, we wanted to offer something. So we wanted to show a sign of forgiveness to the people in the neighborhood, a sign of trust. We wanted to establish new relationships. And so we started giving classes to the most disadvantaged and problematic children. And our objective and wait for a space of welcoming and listening.
En la actualidad, nuestro centro de acogida y amistad.
Adesso il nostro centro di accoglienza
Our center now is known, is appreciated in all the neighborhood. And together with Algerian helpers, with the help of Algerian monitors, we organize various workshops in sewing, custom jewelry, painting, cooking for women. Every month we give space to an Algerian family from France to distribute food to the 70 poor families who have asked us to select.
the rooms in which the murdered nuns lived and which remained empty for several years have become a space of life, solidarity, illusion, happiness and hope. This is a place where people learn something, break down barriers, and share everything. And we have become a place of listening and help for many people with family problems, health problems, living in loneliness, poverty, and so on. And these people give us their trust because they know that we are nuns, religious people, and that I believe that our humble presence helps to alleviate people's suffering and to motivate and encourage them in the face of difficulties and to make life more human, attractive, and more beautiful. Our presence is both radiant and discreet, and is inspired by the life of Jesus in Nazareth. It transforms the world we live in by giving it a Christian flavor. Following the Lord's recommendation, you are the salt of the earth. So then, in places devoid of hope, where for a long time fear and senselessness reigned, today we've built the kingdom of God with new bricks of fraternity, brotherhood, friendship, and solidarity.
Grazie, grazie.
I'd like to thank Sister Lourdes. I think her words will stay in our hearts for its truthfulness. To Cardinal Jean-Paul Vesco, I would like to ask, in this world at war, bleeding everywhere, what do these 19 martyrs of the dialogue teach us? I would like to speak Italian, but actually I'm not good enough, so I will speak French. The 1st of August, 1996, I was at the novitiate when I was told about the homicide, the murder of Pierre Curie, together with his Muslim friend, Mohamed Boucheri. So this is part of the things of life, in a way. those things that we cannot possibly explain. But I did feel that there was a very special link between the life of this man I didn't know, I hadn't met, and my own life as a young Dominican monk. At the end of my studies, I became a volunteer, and I participated together with another brother to the creation of a Dominican community in Tlemcen, in the Diocese of Oran in Algeria. Then life led me a few years later to be elected Archbishop of Oran. And so I went to live where Pierre Claverie used to live, and was murdered. So, well, together with Thomas and others, I was given the task to organize the celebration for the beatification of Pierre Claverie and his 18 companions, martyrs of Algeria. When I arrived in 2002 in this church, I discovered this Church of the Beatified and the Blessed, together with Sister Lourdes and many other brothers and sisters, including Father Maurice. Whose funeral is celebrated in Algeria. I arrived at a moment when the country and the church were going back to their normal life. And I remember that I read in a newspaper some news that were actually very worrying, because they said, for the first time in 10 years, the road killed more people than terrorism. It was a quite worrying piece of news, but this meant that we were going back to normal, to a normal life. When I was asked, what can the beatified teach us in this world at war, I can answer with 3 proposals. The first is the strength of a unified church. The second is the strength of brotherhood. And the third is the subversive power of fragility and of an unarmed presence. So, going back to the first one, a unified church. The choice was made to present the cause for beatification of the 19 martyrs all together, either all together or none of them. A choice that was loaded with meaning, because it made it possible, first of all, to emphasize that if 11 people had been murdered, they were all members of the church who, for 10 years, had run the risk of losing their life to stay with their friends, with their brothers, with their Algerian friends. The second reason is that among these 19 martyrs, there were famous people, an archbishop, a bishop, first of all, people of great spirituality, as Brother Christian de Ferger, and people who were well known locally in the community, as Father Luc, who was a doctor. But there were also very humble people, as for instance Father Henri Vergès and the nuns who were silently working there. But they were beatified not for their personal qualities, but for the testimony they gave altogether. Second point, the strength of fraternity. When we had to think about the celebration of the beatification, we thought it was impossible for us to organize it in Algeria, because it would have been the first time that something like that was celebrated in a country of Muslim tradition with a Muslim society. The organizational problems, the logistics, well, so many problems would have stopped us. Well, the main problem was to make people understand what a beatification is in a Muslim society. And then there was also the problem of presenting 19 murdered Christians while the country had already had 200,000 victims, including about 100 imams. At the end, we made this choice, and we were supported by the local authorities, and we decided to organize this celebration in Oran, in the sanctuary of Notre-Dame de Santa Cruz on the esplanade of Living Together in Peace. That's how it's called. All those who were there that day will never forget this celebration. At the end of the celebration, everyone was smiling. And that smile showed the presence of a God that was among us, Muslims and Christians. Fraternity in this world at war is expressed through this event. We wanted to tell something to the world, a message that comes from a unified church. Today, our church is universal and meets to work for peace. The strength of fraternity and brotherhood was written that day and forever. After a unified church, after the strength of brotherhood, the third lesson we learned is that of an unarmed presence. Our church is insignificant in Algeria in terms of a number of members. As Sister Lourdes said, its history is the history of the loss of all power. But we have understood that the loss of power doesn't mean to lose meaning. On the contrary, actually. And because our church is unarmed, we can say it is also disarming. And I would like to conclude by sharing with you the testimony of Brother Christian Deschergé when he tells about his encounter with the leader of a group of armed terrorists near Tiberina on the 24th of December 1994. Please listen. I'm going to read. When for a quarter of an hour, says Christian Deschergé, I came face to face with the murderer of the 12 Croats, the big chief of the armed Islamic group in our area. He had come to ask for specific things. He was armed, he had a knife and a machine gun. There were 6 of them in all. It was night. He had agreed to come out of the house because I did not want to talk to someone armed in a house that was a place of peace. Therefore, we were outside. In my eyes, he was unarmed. We were face to face. He made his 3 demands, and 3 times I said no, or not like this. And he replied, "You have no choice." And I said, "Yes, I do have a choice." Not only because I was the guardian of my brothers, but also because, in fact, I was also the guardian of that brother who was there in front of me and who had to be able to discover in himself something different from what he had become. And that's what happened, actually, in the sense that he gave in and made the effort to understand. After our nightly conversation, I told him, "We are preparing to celebrate Christmas. For us, it is the birth of the Prince of Peace. And you come here like this, armed." And he replied, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." After the Christmas visit, it took me 2 to 3 weeks to recover from my own death, in a way, because one accepts death very quickly, don't worry, but to recover, it takes time. Then I said to myself, these people, this guy with whom I had such a tense dialogue, what can I ask for him? What kind of prayer can I do for him? I cannot ask God to kill him. What I can ask God is to disarm him. And then I said to myself, do I have the right to ask, disarm him, if I don't start by asking, disarm me and disarm our community? So this is my simple daily prayer that I share with you in a very simple way. So these were the words by our brother Christian: disarm him, disarm us. So there is no prayer that could be more urgent in these times of unbridled arms race. So, well, the strength of a unified church, the universality of the testimony of brotherhood, and the subversive power of an unarmed presence. So here, dear brothers and sisters, these are the lessons that the testimony of the 19th blessed martyr of Algeria can bring to our world at war. It is the testimony of ordinary men and women, like each and every one of us, who find themselves in extraordinary circumstances and whose faith did not waver. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellence. Thank you for your words that are perfectly in line with the path of the meeting. Now I would like to give the floor to Professor Kebour, because I believe as an Algerian woman, these events maybe talk to her in a very special way. So I'm asking you, these figures, what do they tell you as an Algerian woman? Thank you. Can you hear me? I'd like to thank you all for inviting me here to share with you a part of my personal experience, because these lives that we look at every day are real lives. They are real experiences of dialogue, and I am completely involved in the story of the murders of the monks of Tiperin, simply because I'm Algerian, I'm a Muslim, and I have lived the experience of terrorism in Algeria. So the black decades, or the dark decades of my beloved land, where the people of Algeria was involved in this terror. We lived together, we experienced this terror together, and so did the monks. So I would like to underline that terrorism wasn't targeted only to foreigners or to Christians, but it was rather something that involved the whole of the Algerian people. We were all threatened, and many Algerians died with no reason at all. So many souls were killed for no reason, and this created a situation of terror among people. It's a big wound for our people, but Algeria fought against terrorism, and after 10 years, the Algerian government managed to achieve the civil reconciliation, and after that, we started to breathe again. Since I have lived these years of terrors, I can say that, well, Algerians weren't all born terrorists. The God they taught me to love is good and merciful, but terrorists spread a very dark image of our God, a God that I have always worshipped. Now it has become a monster rather than a God, because it allows people to be killed in his name. Foreigners, women, men, children are killed. I had a deep existential crisis because I was deeply struck by the fact that people were killed in the name of God. Allah Akbar. So I couldn't recognize that Islam religion of my childhood, the good Islam. In the Quran, God has 99 names, among which the name, the God of peace, Salam, Ar-Rahim, the merciful is another name that is given to Allah, and the God of love, Al-Wadud. So there are so many beautiful names that are given to our God, and they do not coincide with what these terrorists were doing. So at a certain point, I myself couldn't recognize this God that allowed these evil deeds to be done in his name. So I am really involved in this story of the murder of these monks because they belonged to that land, my beloved land, that welcomed them. Many Christian communities were actually born in Algeria. This is something that has to be said. That means that my land is a land of where Muslims and Christians can meet and live together. So this is something that has to be kept in mind. There are other persons. So Charles de Faucon, he was a military man in Algeria. He was struck by Muslim traditions, and he found his faith back among the Tuaregs and decided to stay and live with them. So he, just like so many others, showed that when we meet or when there is an encounter, a friendship can be born. A real friendship, a strong friendship. I made the same experience when I left Algeria in 2004 to come to Italy and studied St. Augustine with a scholarship. And I came here in 2004, and I've been welcomed by the community of the Little Sisters of Jesus. And that was also a very important encounter for me, because they welcomed me with love, with no interest, other interest, just like these monks and other Christian people were welcomed, and with no other second goal. So I did live this kind of experience, so I can really understand the experience of Sister Lourdes, of Brother Charles de Foucault, and all the Christians that decided to offer their life for the other. I can understand this because I myself lived a very similar experience. I have been welcomed. I have been respected by these nuns. I have been welcomed in their homes, in their house, and a very profound friendship was born that helped me overcome the fear of the other and go beyond all the prejudice we have against others. And now I feel like the daughter of the whole world. So these martyrs for me are a testimony of a real friendship. A friendship that goes beyond hatred, beyond violence, beyond terror, where love is. When there is love, everything can be overcome. And Christian de Chargé actually forgave those who killed him even before they killed him. So, well, to be able to forgive, even before dying, those who could take our life. This is as a gesture of martyrdom, but not in a negative sense. It is a martyrdom that is made in the name of love. It's not easy to speak freely, so I go back to what I wanted to say. The Islam is innocent of all what we lived during the terrorism in Algeria. There are many lines of the Quran that prohibit the killing of innocent souls without a valid reason. And I quote, anyone who kills someone who has not killed anyone else will be killing like the whole of humanity, the whole of mankind. And anyone who gives life to a person gives life to the whole of mankind. So the coexistence in the Quran between Muslims and others from different faiths, particularly monks. So this is something that we can read in the Quran that says, your closest friends are those that say we're Christian, because there you can find monks and priests, and they are not proud. Quran 582. So the dialogue is there. It is present in the Islam, and we can build bridges. So, well, I don't want to dwell too long about this. To conclude, I would simply like to quote. I didn't want to talk about I didn't want to talk about Saint Augustine, but I cannot avoid it, because when I was the victim of violence in my country, I was asking myself, why did God allow that people were killed like this? And Augustine told me that, no, God is not the author of evil. God is the absolute good, and everything that comes from God is good. So where does evil come from? It doesn't come from God. It's not God that allows evil to be done. It comes from the freedom of choice of human beings. So it's us, human beings, who are responsible, who are fragile, as Augustine says. Human nature is fragile. But we are also responsible for what we do. And we are the keepers of peace and of dialogue. So I'd like to conclude with two quotes. One by St. Augustine, because, as you said, the story of these monks is based on the reason why people decide to stay, to be ready to be killed, simply because these people wanted to sacrifice themselves for my land. And St. Augustine says, love and do what you want. If you want to be silent in the name of God, in the name of love. If you speak, speak in the name of love. If you correct someone, correct in the name of love. If you forgive, forgive in the name of love. You should be the root of love. And from this root is the origin of love. Another important quotation, well, thanks to St. Augustine, I went back to the roots of the Muslim mystic story, and I found back love for God and for my friends and my loved ones. My heart accepts any kind of love. It is a monastery where monk can pray for any idol or a temple. It's the Torah, it's the Quran, it's the Bible. I profess the religion of love. Any place, this is our, love is my only religion, my only faith. So these are the words I'd like to use to conclude, to say that there is hope. As long as there is love, there is hope. And we are all responsible for the creation of a universal brotherhood. So it's a duty for all of us. Thank you.
Grazie professoressa Chebur, grazie per averci fatto assaporare cosa ha voluto dire per...
Thank you. Thank you for explaining to us what this meant for a lot of religious people and intellectuals who fought against violence, and above all against violence in the name of God. So, Father Thomas Gorjon, who actually accompanied these martyrs to their beatification, I asked him what is their legacy for the Church and the world of today. Well, it's a summary of what our friends already said. The message of our 19 martyrs, I believe, is quite clear. The Church needs to understand better the meaning of a presence in a context where actually in so many countries we are a minority. So Church has to show that a brotherly coexistence is possible among different religions. In the Muslim world, the gospel of peace is announced by the Church and is a testimony, but this doesn't mean that this actually is accepted by others who can stay deaf and blind in front of this testimony. The martyrs of Algeria and all those who stayed, because a lot of them stayed in Algeria. We have listened to Sister Lourdes. I know how difficult it is for her to speak about these events. But I would like to say, dear friends, that today, here, you could listen to a real confessor of the faith, just like Archbishop de Tessier was. As she explained, Lourdes had a discernment, made a choice to stay in Algeria, but she was not accepted, so to speak, since she had met, or rather, since I have met so many people who stayed there and who were not killed, many lived a spiritual struggle, asking themselves, why me? Why I wasn't killed? So, well, it's very difficult for us to listen to this, but it's important to listen to the confessors of faith. In today's world, martyrs teach us what perseverance means, what loyalty means, what fidelity means, and another important word, friendship. And here we are in a perspective of an interreligious dialogue with our Muslim friends who show us that to have a dialogue, we need to be humble. So that a dialogue can begin only if we take the path of humility. And we need to develop the taste for the other. How do we live in the church with the believers of other religions? How do we experience the others who are different from us? Do I see them as a danger or as a blessing? A testimony that was given on the day of the funerals of Claverie by a Muslim woman who had asked to talk during the funeral, and it was a risk for her to speak up. But she explained in a few words that Peter Claverie was her bishop. So she was a Muslim woman, and she was talking about the Catholic bishop. She said, Claverie was my bishop because when she went through a very strong crisis in her Muslim faith, the Christian bishop had helped her to find back the roots of her faith. And Claverie didn't try to convert her to Christianity. He only tried to give her new roots in her own Muslim faith. So, well, the martyrs don't ask us to convert the others. And they call us, and as the blessed Enrique just said, you have to take the part of love, of forgiveness, of communion against hatred and revenge and violence. And in some sentences by Brother Vergès, talk about this hope, this shared hope, this gospel of life that was followed till the very end, till the offer of their life. I would like to conclude by talking about the common good. What is the common good? As you know, Pope Francis, who supported this beatification cause, was the one. We were together with the cardinal, who was a bishop of Oran at the time. So, slamming his fist on his desk, Pope Francis said, this beatification has to be celebrated in Algeria. And why did he say so? Well, I think that he actually felt the benefits of such a celebration in the dialogue, in the inter-religious dialogue with our Muslim friends. A dialogue that is done by the Church as a guest, hosted in the Muslim world. If you remember, after the beatification, there were so many other steps taken by Pope Francis the encounter with the Imam of the great mosque of El Cairo. I don't remember where, but anyway. And the signature of the document on human brotherhood, then the trip to Morocco, and so many other things. Pope Francis left us the Fratelli Tutti, all brothers, that shows us as a church, but also for all the men of goodwill, how we need to walk towards the universal brotherhood. And these 19 martyrs are an icon of this path towards brotherhood. In their choice to stay, to risk their lives as brothers and sisters for other and brothers and sisters of a different faith, the Muslim brothers and sisters, so they were called by God to take the road to beatification. This is a very difficult road to take because they knew that they could be victims of violent deaths. There is a clear reference to the search for the common good rather than the personal good. Along this path, and with their discernment, both at personal and community level, as Sister Lourdes was saying, the martyrs never looked for their own good. Otherwise, they would have escaped, they would have left. So they looked for the good of their own community in a larger sense, because this included also the good of their neighbors, the Algerian people, so the common good of hope. That was the year of the Jubileum of Hope. And this is one of the things that they teach us. For every one of us, each of us according to our vocation, how can we work for the common good of hope in a world that is torn apart by violence? The blessed Paul, a brother of Theber, he wrote, "Our world is sick. What we lack is a meaning. We don't know why we live. We don't know where we are going. And we are ready to do anything." The crisis is not just an economic or mostly an economic crisis. It is the difficulty we have in living together. The relationship between men are not true because men do not and women don't feel seen. So in a way, the Algerian martyrs can be seen as the inspirator of this document, Fratelli Tutti, where we find the main pillars that are at the basis, that were at the basis of their life and their deaths. Hope, no frontiers toward the others, the understanding of diversity, the unique value of love, a society that is open, that can include everyone, the exchange, the fruitful exchange with the other, and something that we really lack today, gratuity. I'm often asked, what was the meaning of this martyrdom? Well, actually, it didn't bring any particular kind of fruits. These people were not planning to achieve something by offering up their lives. They just did that in a completely selfless way. This is what gratuity means. And we should actually reflect on what gratuity can be in our lives in a world where nothing is for free. So I have, normally we need to find some kind of benefit or return in anything we do. But a poor church, a humble church that doesn't have a power to defend is a church that can actually give a form of gratuity. Thank you.
Ecco, io penso.
Well, I'd say that to conclude, this meeting was extremely touching. The 19 martyrs of Algeria are smiling from heaven today, I think. Together with Father Giussani, they are looking down at us at this meeting. And maybe this is what they're saying. Let's hope that those down there will finally understand that Christianity is not a theory or a good idea, but it is an experience, a life, like a punch on the nose. But it is also the mercy, unlimited mercy of God. And there is a small brick I'd like to share with you all. I'm thinking about those 200 people who, for years, visit Tiberine. 95% are Muslims. So this is a pilgrimage, a silent pilgrimage that reminds us that these lives were not offered in vain. I'd like then to thank all our guests here who came from far away. I'd like to also invite you all to support the meeting in the stands Dona Ora. And I'd like to thank the martyrs of Algeria, who till today gave us a brick of hope. Enjoy the meeting and have a nice afternoon.
Questo è un luogo che genera dialogo,
Che si impegna, che si batte.
che approfondisce la conoscenza e sostiene la fiducia. È un crocevia dove si incontra chi desidera il vero, il bello, il giusto, il bene. È una testimonianza di speranza nel cuore ferito, del presente. E tutto questo esiste anche grazie a te.
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
di comunicare la fede agli altri, veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'Iter Communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'Iter Communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'Iter Communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene.
Vi prego, vi imploro, con umiltà e con fiducia, permettete a Cristo di parlare all'uomo.
Don Gius aveva capito il problema che avevo. Se la tua vocazione è vero, il tuo lavoro verrà fuori anche dai sassi.
Di comunicare la fede agli altri, veramente insieme a loro riscoprire che cos'è la fede, che cos'è la fede per me. Portare Cristo agli altri, comunicarlo agli altri è l'unico modo che abbiamo per conoscerlo veramente.
L'Iter Communionis aiuta a comunicare all'esterno la ricchezza di vita, di giudizi, di tentativi, di opere che nascono dalle persone e dalle comunità. L'Iter Communionis è proprio la vita del movimento. Scrivete all'Iter Communionis le vostre esperienze, ci fate bene.